Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So this spoiler season has been, well, let's just say a pretty strange one. I mean, yesterday we found out that the Upgrades Unleashed Precon is actually technically not a legal commander deck even. I mean, weird things are definitely happening. And of course we've gotten a lot of interesting, unique, and weird cards from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty as well, but none potentially as weird as the one that we got from yesterday, and this strange card might already be broken. So what exactly does Swift Reconfiguration do, and how can it be broken? Well, let's jump into it to find out. So Swift Reconfiguration is an enchantment aura that has flash and it costs a white, and it says enchant creature or vehicle. It says enchanted permanent is a vehicle artifact with crew 5 and it loses all other card types. So mechanically, you think about the card and you're like, okay, that makes sense. I can turn either my creature or a vehicle for whatever reason into an artifact, with crew 5. It doesn't have any other card types. It's a vehicle and it's not a creature unless it's crewed. But the actual, the more that you think about it, the more kind of, well, disturbing it kind of gets. I mean, even the flavor text reads, on the bright side, the bear now had cup holders because, you turned a bear into a car and then you drive around in the bear. So obviously, turning your commander into a car with cup holders can be even more disturbing, cause magic. Anyways, aside from actually thinking through how this card actually, would work in practice, this is a very unique card and one that, yes, can be broken and can do some really interesting things. First of all, the ability to turn one of your creatures into not a creature, like, your commander, can have a lot of fantastic applications. If someone, say, cast a spell to destroy target creature, or, destroy all creatures, well, if you turn your commander, or again, whatever creature you want to, into not a creature, an artifact vehicle, then, that will not take them out, because they are no longer a creature. So for just 1 mana at instant speed, you can do this. Obviously, this can be used in a defensive way as well, though. If an opponent is swinging at you with a massive creature, you say, nope. That is now not a creature, it is a vehicle, and unless you're going to be able to crew it, it is not a creature. So it's a very strange kind of pacifism as well, and again for just 1 mana at instant speed. Now crew 5 is a pretty hefty requirement for crewing. Obviously it's doable, but still, I mean, this can shut an opponent down, especially if they're running a Voltron deck, where they might not have any creatures in play except for their commander, and then they can't crew their commander, so they're going to have to basically get rid of this first to ever do anything with their commander. So again, weirdness aside, this card does have a good amount of applications to it, and there's actually a good amount of decks out there that can utilize it, but first let's talk about a really nasty thing that you can do with it. So in combination with Swift Reconfiguration, the card that kept coming up with it on the internet was Devoted Druid. Many players point out that this can be a fantastic way to combo with this card. Devoted Druid is a 0/2 elf druid that costs 1 and a green and it taps for a green. By putting a -1/-1 counter on Devoted Druid, you can untap Devoted Druid. So typically, again, unless you had another way to cancel out that counter, you could put 1 -1/-1 counter on this to untap it, and then it would be technically a -1/1. And yeah, I mean, I guess if you tried to do that again, it would just, go away because it would be at 0 toughness. But Swift Reconfiguration turns this Devoted Druid into an artifact vehicle, and again, it's no longer a creature. So when you do that, a few things happen. Number one, even if this just came into play this turn, typically if it was a creature, you couldn't just tap it for mana because it doesn't have haste and it's affected by summoning sickness. But when you turn it into an artifact vehicle, that's not crude and not a creature, that summoning sickness doesn't matter. This can tap for mana now because it's just an artifact. So first off, obviously you can tap for mana right away, which is kind of like a pseudo way of giving it haste in that way. But more importantly, you can just keep putting that -1/-1 counter on it to untap it again and again and again as many times as you want. Again, since it's no longer a creature, those -1/-1 counters on it do not matter at all. But you can just keep putting them on there. You can put 1,000 on, you can put 10,000 on, you can put 1,000,000 on. It doesn't matter how many -1/-1 counters you put on Devoted Druid when it's an artifact vehicle, it's going to stick around. I guess I should say, as long as you never crew it. Do not crew your Devoted Druid when it has all those counters on it, because yes, then it will become a creature and definitely will be gone. So essentially, again, because you can just keep tapping and untapping this for mana, you generate infinite green mana, or again, as much as you want, and yeah, you get infinite counters on this, which don't matter. So for 3 mana in total, again, at instant speed, you can essentially generate infinite mana and give this haste, and yeah, Swift Reconfiguration can do really weird things with a card like this. And speaking of cards like Devoted Druid, let's talk about some somewhat similar ones like Barrington Medic and Cinderhaze Wretch. Barrington Medic is a 0/4 Kithkin Cleric that costs 4 and a white, and it has tap to prevent the next 1 damage to be dealt to our creature player this turn, and of course we can put a -1/-1 counter on it to untap it. So obviously, again, that ability is somewhat like Devoted Druid, and if we turn this into an artifact vehicle that is not crewed, we can just do this as many times as we want. Essentially, well, we can prevent all damage that we want to any creatures or any players. So our creatures are protected from, red damage-based board wipes, and, we're protected from essentially any kind of damage, whether that's combat or direct damage. And of course, in a format like Commander, if you want to make deals with other players to prevent damage to them or their creatures, you can do so as well. And then Cinderhaze Wretch is a 3/2 Elemental Shaman for 4 and a black that has tap target player discards a card, plays ability only during your turn, and put a -1/-1 counter on it, untap Cinderhaze Wretch. So again, make it an artifact vehicle, do not crew it, and have some fun. And probably, upset your friends quite a bit with this one. Because, of course, then you have a Cinderhaze Wretch artifact vehicle that can tap infinitely to make all other players discard their entire hand. Now, you can only do this during your turn, obviously, but even if they try to hold on to any cards on their next turn, well, you just say, now your cards are gone again. Now, to my knowledge, these are actually the only 3 creatures out there that mention that, put a -1/-1 counter on it, untap it. Please let me know in the comments below if I am wrong on that, though. And of course, again, Swift Reconfiguration is a very new card, so I'm sure I've missed a lot of other cards that this can be incredibly powerful with, so please let me know any combinations that you can think of in the comments below as well. And yeah, outside of cards that it can combo with, Swift Reconfiguration, is just, again, a very flexible card. If an opponent tries to Swords or Path to Exile your commander, or, Wrath of God and, destroy all creatures, you just say, you know what, I actually, don't care if my commander is actually a creature, I just really want it to be in play, for one reason or another. So, for 1 mana, I'm going to save my commander from whatever kind of removal or, wrath, and now it's just going to stick around. And actually, I should have mentioned this earlier, but a big thank you to Eddie for all the great discussions around this card and for making me aware of the combination with Devoted Druid with it. But of course, if I make any mistakes in this episode, also make sure that you blame Eddie. Anyways, of course, Eddie also mentioned commanders that actually might want to wrath the board themselves, like, his Firesong and Sunspeaker deck, where you're going to be casting a lot of red-based board wipes, but you might lose Firesong and Sunspeaker in the process. But now if you actually just, Swift Reconfiguration your own commander, all you want is your commander just to stick around and be in play, and now you're just free to keep wiping the board with your damage-based board wipes and getting benefits from that with your commander vehicle thingy in play now. And of course, we'll talk about other commanders that this card might work well in, but really quick, one more thing. A very interesting play that you can actually make with a Swift Reconfiguration is in combination with certain planeswalkers like Gideon, Champion of Justice. Gideon starts off at 4 loyalty, and his +1 is put a loyalty counter on Gideon, Champion of Justice for each creature target opponent controls. Until end of turn, Gideon, Champion of Justice becomes a human soldier creature with power and toughness each equal to the number of loyalty counters on him and gains indestructible. He's still a planeswalker, prevent all damage to be dealt to him this turn. And then, the -15 is exile all other permanents, because that's a thing. Regardless, of course, with Swift Reconfiguration, one weird interaction that you can do is with that 0. Again, that 0 turns Gideon into a creature, so then you can cast Swift Reconfiguration to enchant him to actually make him into an artifact vehicle. So he goes from Planeswalker to creature to artifact. Now you can still utilize the loyalty abilities of Gideon. You're not prevented from doing that just because it's an artifact instead of a Planeswalker anymore, but one interesting thing is that your opponents can no longer attack Gideon now. Since Gideon is not a Planeswalker, it cannot be attacked, and you can still utilize its abilities. You know, also, or if you've got another Gideon in play that can also turn into a creature, you can do a weird kind of, hey, I'm gonna crew my Gideon with my Gideon. And this all makes sense because, again, magic. Strange interactions aside, let's quickly go through some commanders that might want to utilize this card. First up, a commander that already utilizes a card like Devoted Druid. How about Time Luminous Enigma? It's a 3/3 Nightmare Beast for 1 white, black, green. It says each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional vigilance counter on it. By paying 3, you can move 3 counters from among creatures you control with the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a permanent card converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So again, this commander can already utilize Devoted Druid in a really fantastic way. However, number 1, this is another kind of a commander that you really don't care whether, it's a creature, an artifact, or whatever. And again, if someone's going to try to wrath the board with, say, Wrath of God that takes out all creatures, you can utilize Swift Reconfiguration to save this. And still get the benefit with that ETB whenever your creatures come into play, and then also still utilize its ability. But of course, when you have Devoted Druid in play, and you can combo that Swift Reconfiguration onto it with Time in play, that's pretty much going to be game over. Because again, you can get an infinite number of -1/-1 counters on your Devoted Druid and generate infinite green mana. So again, you can activate that ability as many times as you want, since obviously you can keep paying that 3 over and over again, and you can keep removing counters from your Devoted Druid artifact vehicle. So you essentially mill your entire deck and then get, all of your lands and everything else with converted mana cost 3 or less onto the battlefield, and I'm sure you've got plenty of ways to win from there. Maybe you've got a sacrifice outlet in a way to, drain someone with a Blood Artist or whatnot and keep getting that creature back again and again and again. There's plenty of ways to win. Next up, how about an Enchantress commander with Sithis Harvest Hand? She's a 1/2 legendary enchantment creature nymph that costs green-white and says whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So in this deck, Swift Reconfiguration becomes again a cantrip spell, only being a 1 mana spell that draws you a card and gains you 1 life. And again, it's an extremely flexible spell. It can be a, somewhat of a pacifism at instant speed against an opponent's creature, or, you can utilize it to save your own creature, like Sithis, by turning it into an artifact vehicle. Because again, you really don't care if Sithis is a creature or not. And in fact, in some cases, it's better that she's not. So yeah, I definitely see Swift Reconfiguration fitting into a deck like this. Another Selesnya commander that might want to consider this, though, is Tiana, Captain of the Pyles. She's a 2/2 human soldier that says, when she enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an aura card from among them, put in your hand, and put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Also, whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So, this commander can actually get that off the top of your library into your hand, and on top of that, again, when you do cast, Swift Reconfiguration attached to one of your creatures, you get a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. And again, on top of that, like Sithis, typically Tiana isn't the kind of commander that you really care all that much about actually being a creature. So again, if someone's trying to wrath the board, you can actually save her by making her an artifact vehicle. And of course, there are other cards that combo with this Tiana deck, like, your Shielded by Faith, so go get that and win, and yeah, this can definitely fit into a Tiana deck. Another commander that you typically don't care about being a creature that really cares about, non-creature spells is Kaicar Wind's Fury. A 3/3 bird wizard with flying that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, sacrifice a spirit, add a red. So again, at instant speed, you can utilize this card as a pacifism and, also get a spirit that you can actually use for mana as well. So you kind of just actually get your mana back in a way. I mean, you turn it from, white to red, but still. Or, just, enchant Kaicar with it and turn into an artifact vehicle and avoid those board wipes and such. And yeah, again, this card has a lot of flexibility and a lot of applications for a good amount of decks out there. I mean, even a commander like Galia, Kindler of Hope might want to consider this one, depending on the build, I should say. Galia is a 4/4 Elf Knight with Vigilance that says you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast or an equipment spells from the top of your library. When you cast an equipment spell this way, it gains when this equipment enters the battlefield attached to a creature you control. So again, I will say that not every Galia deck is going to want this because, well, some Galia decks are built in more of a Voltron kind of way. So though Swift Reconfiguration is flexible, it's not really all that flexible when you're not wanting to actually enchant your own creature. That being said, if your Galia deck is not a Voltron deck and, utilizes a lot of different creatures, then sure, you can still utilize Swift Reconfiguration in multiple ways. And again, in those types of decks, you really just care about Galia sticking around, so you can get that value off the top of your library, and so making it into an artifact can definitely be beneficial in some times. And of course, the same can be said for Shram Senior Edificer, a 2/2 Dwarf Advisor that costs 1 and a white and says, whenever you cast an or equipment or vehicle spell, draw a card. So again, like Sithis, this Swift Reconfiguration essentially with this deck becomes a 1-mana cantrip, which is fantastic. But again, like Galia, if this is a Voltron SRAM deck, like, one of the very first decks I ever built, do not enchant SRAM with this. Just don't do it. But if you're looking to go a little wider or utilize other avenues to victory, of course it can be a flexible and fantastic card in that kind of a deck. And one final commander I want to bring up, and actually I should mention this right here, is basically, hey, if there is a commander that deals with auras, it probably can definitely consider Swift Reconfiguration. Anyways, Tiana Ship's Caretaker is a 3/3 Angel Artificer that has flying and first strike that costs 3 red-white. She has, whenever an aura or equipment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may turn that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So again, this can definitely be a commander that really just cares about sticking in play, so she can avoid wraths in this way by becoming an artifact vehicle, which is kind of ironic for an artificer to become an artifact. Anyways, obviously if you're going to be utilizing this as a pacifism type card as well, that can be incredibly effective by, hey, if that creature that has the, Swift Reconfiguration on it dies, great, I just can get that back to my hand and then flash it back out onto something else. Regardless, Swift Reconfiguration is definitely a very unique, interesting, somewhat disturbing, and pretty fantastic card. Again, I never thought I would see a flavor text that mentions cup holders in Magic, but apparently cup holders are now just an actual thing in Magic. Cup holders exist in the Magic universe. They are aware of this amazing invention. That being said, of course, Swift Reconfiguration has a lot of interesting and unique ways that it can work in Magic. I mean, you can utilize it again to protect a creature from a board wipe or target removal, or, you can use it in a way that's more like a pacifism to shut down an opponent's creature, or you can use it in a broken way like with Devoted Druid. But yeah, this is a brand new card, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it, and I would love to hear if you can think of any other ways that you can utilize this card, in a very interesting and unique way, or one way that might be, kind of broken like Devoted Druid. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.